Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron here, your guide to vibrant living. Please pardon the low quality production here today. I just really wanted to get this to you right away. And because it's such an important topic and one that's so sensitive. So, first thing, question. What's the relationship between your personal life, your internal life, your spiritual life, and your business life? Do they meet? Are they separate? How's your feeling go about it? And I'm coming to you from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, right? And you know, one of those amazing moments in life where I happen to be at one of the most beautiful places in the world, and it's almost empty. So if the audio is not the best ever, at least there's not too much background. So please forgive the low quality. Let's see if this makes it a little better for us. I don't know, shiny head, right? So I've been the last few days at a quote business conference, and it's a community that I'm part of, which I was attracted to because it's part, oh, that's too bright, huh? I'm squinting. It's part business, and it's also part spirituality and personal growth. And for y'all that have been following me, you know, my journey has been very much the integration of personal and spiritual development, as well as what we could call professional development. Now, yesterday, in part of what we were doing together, there was somebody that shared what was going on with them, and they received feedback that was tough for them to hear, right? It came across in a way that felt hurtful to them. Now, that brought me back. Well, actually, before I say that, I got a quick story for you. My maintaining of this belief has gotten even stronger. That the greatest spiritual development, personal development, the greatest path to awakening, two things: parenting and spirituality. Oh, sorry, parenting and business. Why? Right? Because relatively speaking, it's easier to sit in a cave in the Himalayas meditating than it is to take care of a newborn, right? The newborn is in your face, so to speak, or screaming or keeping you up all night. Business, likewise, is an incredibly powerful mirror for what's going on inside us, right? It's in our face. The results are showing up. Now, part of what this reminded me of is about 20 years ago, I was with a teacher, very wise, and I'm not going to go into details, names, not important for what we're sharing here. Very, very wise, tapped in, tuned in teacher. And at one point in our relationship, and I'll tell a longer story another time about that relationship, because it was very profound for me. At one point in our relationship, this teacher gave me feedback, right, which was really difficult. It was strong, it was intense, right? And this is a character who can give strong feedback and has many times. And people that had been with this teacher for 20 years prior to that, they came up to me later, days and weeks later, and said, "Oh my goodness, Daniel, that was the most intense, hardest, harshest feedback I've ever seen him give," right? Some would say, "He tore you a new one." Regardless, though, what happened was I received the feedback, and thank goodness by that point in my life, I'd learned enough to know that if feedback touches something in us, we're likely to respond one of two ways. One, we'll immediately agree with it, go, "Oh yeah, that's me, so right, that's right," right? The other, a little bit more common, is we go, "No, that's not true, and there's a problem with the way they gave the feedback, and that's not right, and I need to be treated a different way." And either way, either response, either end of the spectrum, it's indicative of us of that feedback having touched something inside us, right? Touch something meaning that it connected to a feeling or some unresolved energy inside us. So, the experience I had, I knew that my job was to, and I would say as a student, really it's all of our jobs in life to receive feedback. If you're here with me, likely that you are on the path, wherever you are on it, to living a thriving, vibrant life. which includes spirituality, which includes personal and spiritual development. It means awakening, it means getting more clear. So our job then is to receive the feedback, right? Whether that's from a quote unquote teacher or life, our business, our family, whatever it is that shows up opposite us and produces a what does it produce in us that tells us we need to pay attention? Well, it produces a negative feeling, right? Some contrast, some contraction. So when this teacher delivered that to me, I felt obliterated. Now, and I've never had this feeling in my life, and I don't know if this will make sense to you or not. What it felt like, and I didn't realize it until some days later, is that an atomic bomb went off at the floor of my pelvis, right? Inside my torso, boom, and then like growing up was like a, what do they call that, mushroom cloud? Yeah. And in like the interior of my torso was decimated, obliterated. And, you know, to me, that's the imagery that my system came up with to represent the death of my ego in that moment. Not that I don't have any ego now or that it didn't come back. We'll get to that. I do. It did. And Ryan Holiday, great writer. He's written some amazing books. He has a book called Ego is the Enemy. Yes and no. If it's the enemy, we're going against it, guess what? It's going to get stronger, it's going to push back. And really, with all respect to Ryan, whom I like, it's not the enemy. It's a part of us that's there to protect us. Right? It's related to the survival part. Yet, we are looking for something more, something bigger, the spirit part of us. So the result of that decimation, that feedback I got, was that I felt horrible. I thought, one, nobody in this community is gonna even want to touch me, be anywhere near me. I thought I would be ostracized. Two, it felt like death on some level, right? And neither of those things happened, as you can tell. Well, you can tell that it wasn't death. And there were parts of the community that embraced me. There were parts that did ostracize me. What also resulted, though, and this was the shocker to me, was as I allowed that feedback to come into me, and this is what we do. What we don't do, right, is push back, deny, argue, right, if we want to grow. Criticize the way the feedback was given, right? And you know, maybe there is valid criticism to it. The point, though, is how do we benefit from it? What do we get from it? So the point for me was I just took it in. I let it, so to speak, do its work inside me. And I felt horrible for a little while. And what came soon thereafter, right, I didn't sleep the whole night. The whole night I just felt like, oh my God. Again, like I was gonna die. The next morning, before sunrise, I got up. This was at Harbin Hot Springs in California. Got up before the sunrise, and I was so awake and tormented by my mind and my fears. I went early to the hot springs, the baths. This was years before it burned down. And amazingly, I got there and I walked into no, actually, let me say this part. Before I got there, as I started walking, something happened, which was the pain, the turmoil, it disappeared. Like, just disappeared. And somehow what came in its place, and maybe in place of that ego structure that had been so strongly protecting me, was bliss. Like what's called in Buddhism, satori. Satori is described as a glimpse of enlightenment. And I'd had them before, moments of just like, wow, knowing perfection, in perfect presence, zero problems. And you have too, you know, even if in a tiny moment, even if in a past life, because that is our nature. So as I started walking in those pre-dawn moments toward the baths, I realized, like, there's no more pain. I feel good. I feel good. I feel amazing, incredibly grateful. And here's what was really radical to me. I walked in there, and there was one person in the, what do you call it, like locker room, bathhouse area, right, where we go to put our stuff before we go into the baths. Guess who it was? Yeah, it was that teacher. And in that moment, he and I looked at each other. Neither one said a word. There was a smile and a connection that was so profound, so filled with love. And I don't know if I emphasized it clearly enough. The day before, when he gave me that feedback, it was harsh, it was strong. I mean, other people felt it like, I don't know if I want to say hatred, but like seriously negative. And I felt it that way too in that moment. So we saw each other that morning, and it was just pure love. And I was so grateful. And honestly, I don't know how much he was aware of what he said or what happened. I really feel like he was channeling something through him for me. And it was less the words, less the content, more the energy of it. It was extremely powerful. That Satori, by the way, lasted for an entire week. For an entire week, there was no ego in me. It came back, right? And I've gone in and out of it ever since. What's amazing though is whenever we touch into something beyond our normal, right, there's no real going back, because we always remember. Part of us is always connected to that energy. And the reason I'm sharing this all with you right now is, if you have the great blessing, even though it doesn't feel like a blessing at the time, so much sun here, it's getting hot, I'm gonna wrap it up. The great blessing to receive feedback that hurts, and you're committed to your growth, to awakening to truth, and you remember the part of you that is infinite, invincible. You have the opportunity to take it in, to feel, even if it feels horrible, even if it feels like you're dying, and from that, to release something, to see something new, to awaken. It's not easy, believe me, it's incredibly challenging. And you know, you've had this in different ways in your life. So this is my pep talk, cheering you on to not only be open to receiving challenging feedback, maybe even seek it out, be in situations where you do. And because it's worth it, because you're worth it, because that spirit part of yourself is worth it. It's the only game worth playing in life. Now, I hope this is interesting, useful. If you might like to connect further, if you're interested in getting some personal support, I would love to support you in that personal spiritual development, awakening, growth. I will drop a link in the description. If you're interested in working with me, I would love to connect with you. Let's meet. Let's see if it's possibly a fit, if you would be a fit for one of my programs, if I feel like, based on what's happening in your life, that I could be supportive to you. And if I can, I'll tell you about it. If I feel like I can't, I will point you in the direction of what will be helpful for you. And with that, y'all, sayonara from Cabo San Lucas. Had to think about it, where we are. I appreciate you. Live with vibrancy. Aloha.